Now, day one of the Syria Peace Conference left nobody in any doubt about how difficult achieving that peace will be. There were tense moments, angry words, and no hint of compromise as the meeting in Switzerland began. The two warring sides are now expected to sit down face to face for their first direct discussions on Friday.
Ban Ki-moon has described the Geneva peace talks as a first small step towards ending the war in Syria. Speaking after the government and opposition met for the first time, the UN Secretary-General warned both sides they must now be ready to find a political solution.
The past 3 years have been filled with horror. The bombardment of civilians and towns, the use of chemical weapons, terrorist attacks, executions, disappearances, torture, killing, and destruction. Enough is enough. The time has to come to negotiate.
The rival sides have promised to start direct talks on Friday, despite fears that a standoff over the fate of President Bashar al-Assad could block the negotiations. In a bid to narrow the differences, the UN mediator will meet both delegations separately on Thursday.
The negotiations between the Syrian sides will not be easy, they will not be quick, and there are many forces that do not wish them to be successful.
There is no way possible in the imagination that the man who has led the brutal response to his own people could regain the legitimacy to govern.
Ban Ki-moon interrupting Walid Muallim's speech was proof that tensions were running high in the conference room.
Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, I'm sorry, can you just wrap up? Because you have spoken only 20 minutes, longer than 20 minutes.
Mr. Secretary, you spoke 25 minutes. I came here after 12 hours in the aeroplane.
Yeah, I know you have a lot to speak.
Few minutes to end my speech.
I will have to give equal time to the opposition group. So
yourself, you live in New York, I live in Syria. I have the right to give the Syrian version here in this forum.
The Syrian foreign minister insists Assad's presidency is not up for discussion, while the opposition requires the Syrian president to hand over power.
I call on this delegation to sign the Geneva text, so that all of Assad's powers can be transferred, including the executive, the military and judicial powers.
The UN Special Envoy on Syria, Lakhdar Brahimi, will mediate direct negotiations between the parties in Geneva. The UN is aiming to forge an agreement on a partial ceasefire so that humanitarian aid can be delivered to the Syrian people.
I don't think it is the war is about President Assad stepping down. I think the war is about the destruction of Syria. And stopping the conflict, it has to be these parties who are speaking today who should tell their agents in the region to stop arming, financing and sending terrorists into Syria. What John Kerry and William Hague said today is a typically colonial attitude. Is this democracy? To ask the president of another country to step down? Are they representative of the Syrian people? Or they should put a mechanism for a political process where the Syrian people decide their future? I was amazed to hear them speak in this language and in this way. You know, neo-colonialism newly revisiting us.
Today, the talks transfer to the United Nations in Geneva, where each side will have separate, private talks with UN officials. On the agenda, not an immediate peace deal, not a transitional government, not the removal of President Assad, but instead better access for aid agencies, perhaps some local ceasefires, anything to bring some small relief to the millions of Syrians who have suffered so much. If any of that is agreed, it will be a positive beginning, but it's still not clear whether the two sides will negotiate face-to-face as planned on Friday. These talks were never going to be quick or easy. This week is just the start of a very long process.
And this story just into us here at CNN. Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri is urging militants fighting in Syria to unite. The message comes in a 5-minute audio clip posted online. Zawahiri says all jihadi factions must stop fighting each other, adding that the heart of our Islamic nation is bleeding when we see the internal strife in Syria. CNN cannot independently verify the authenticity of this message.